Hi, everyone. My name is Tessie Jones, and welcome to the Blended Generation Think Tank. This think tank brings together Gen Xers, Gen Y, and Boomers to discuss the importance of the work culture. What keeps them engaged, what keeps them loyal. So this is going to be an interesting session because we'll start to gauge differences as well as similarities across generations on this one topic. So the definition of work culture: it is the character or personality of an organization. It's what makes your organization unique based on, let's say, the sum of values, the beliefs, the traditions, how people interact with each other. In actuality, it's really the way things are done within a company. So today, there are a lot of reasons why work culture is actually more important than it was a few decades ago. For one, employees actually don't feel trapped anymore. You need the top talent, and that top talent actually has a lot more options today. I don't know if you remember, but even during the recession and before the recession, everybody said you're lucky to have a job. See, that doesn't really cut it anymore because the recession, and especially for Gen Xers who've been through this 3 times or so, the fear of losing your job or being laid off has significantly abated in the last, let's say, 6-7 years. The freelance economy that actually gave rise when the financial crisis hit in 2008, it significantly increased the number of entrepreneurs in the workforce at the same time when companies were significantly downsizing as well. In 2013, PwC actually ran a study that said that critical talent is actually leaving the workforce at 20% higher rates than they were before. So following 2008, there was a turnover of 24.1%, which was the highest since before the recession. So it's happening already. And this follows the fact that there is a talent shortage out there. I think with technology, with the emerging let's say social media and the rise of big data and in even the environmental and healthcare, there are a lot of opportunities out there, but there are not enough people to fill those opportunities. In fact, a lot of employers, they say 54% of employers actually report talent shortages that are impacting a lot of their client-facing abilities and outcomes. And finally, like what's happening, and as all you know, there's a lot of networking tools out there. Like Albert, you have your Albert's list. We have Facebook, we have Glassdoor. So it enables a lot of people to monitor the market for job opportunities and get the information available by way of, let's say, employee reviews. So now it truly becomes almost a two-way street in terms of the job interview process. And so it's as much about finding fit from an employee standpoint as it is from an employer. Okay, so we're also going to talk about workforce employee engagement during this process and how that's actually impacting profits and productivity. Before we get started, though, I want to introduce our panelists to introduce themselves. And when I call on you, just state your name, what generation you represent, and what you do for a living. Okay, so Albert.
Hi, my name is Albert. I am a millennial, and I currently work in high tech here in Orange County, recently transplanted from Silicon Valley.
And you're a millennial. You're a younger
millennial.
Okay.
Oh, I guess I'm a mid-range millennial, I guess is probably the best way to say it. I'm not really sure anymore.
I don't know what mid-range, and I think it spans from, let's say, 17 to 35, I believe. So you are mid-range. Okay.
Yeah.
Martin?
Yeah, hi, I'm Martin. I am in Toronto, Canada, and I used to be a PR guy. Now I would say I'm a digital communications consultant. So that is, social PR is part of that, and I am a boomer. Not on the early edge, thankfully, but on the later edge, but still responsible for all that crap.
We won't hold you responsible, Martin. You're just a mouthpiece right now for yourself, not necessarily your generation. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me off the hook.
Okay. Rob. Hila?
Can you hear me? Can you guys
Yeah.
hear me? Oh, great, great, great. Okay, hi, my name is Mila, Mila Rojo. I am a director at a financial services firm, so I have a lot of hands-on experience with building a workplace culture and happy workplace environment. It's actually been a primary focus of my work. So I'm really happy to be here among all of you, and that's basically it, my summary introduction.
Okay, great. Jillian?
Got myself unmuted. Hi, I'm Jillian. I would definitely call myself an older millennial, and I work in digital marketing in New York City at a real estate company.
Okay, great. Stephen?
Hi, I'm Stephen Thompson. I am a older Gen X person, according to Amy, and I work in the auto insurance industry. I'm a supervisor for field reps, so it's a different way of developing work culture when you have people in like 8 different locations. So.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. And last but not least, Tiffany?
Tiffany Daniels. I am an older millennial. I live in Austin, Texas, and I work in workforce development.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so before we get started with the questions, I want to do a roll call, and I want to ask how many people here are entrepreneurs versus, okay, entrepreneurs first. Can you give me a show of hands?
Are we like entrepreneurs exclusively, or is that like
currently, just currently? Okay, and I'm not, and that could be that's starting your own business. I'm not sure if freelance. Well, freelance is the same thing too. So everybody else. So besides Martin, everyone else works full time for the man, I guess, right? For lack of a better term.
The woman.
Well,
the woman.
I don't know how to answer that because I do a lot of other work as an entrepreneur. So okay. I work for the man, and I also work on other projects.
Okay, so you're a moonlighter too, right?
Yeah, I mean it really depends on the type of projects. I'm very selective, obviously, since I have a full-time position. But I do work on different projects consistently for the past, I don't know, 15 years or so in the same field. So I guess I'm an entrepreneur, but my main focus is.
Okay. So yeah, according to Tiffany, you're a side hustler. So that's fine.
I'm a side hustler. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so my first question, and this will be a good question to ask because we have different generations here, and I'm going to take you guys, for those of you who actually started work years ago, like me, like 20 years ago, think back. And when entering the workforce, what was your expectations going into a company? And then when I ask that, it means like what kind of company did you expect to work for? So why don't we start with Martin?
You know, it's funny. I think in some ways I have millennial tendencies. I never expected to work for a company. I really, my focus was going into the arts, so I did stand-up comedy. I was a TV writer. I did films with my wife. I've written a couple of books, and I kind of fell into PR via stand-up comedy, working with a person, Mark Breslin, who started a chain of comedy clubs and who had no money for advertising and had to tell a story. So I kind of fell into it, and so my first experience with culture wasn't for a few years when I kind of got a job in an ad agency, and it was like playing ad guy. It wasn't like really being in a job. We had to have lunches. They were liquid lunches. This is the tail end of the Mad Men era, so the 80s. And it seemed surreal. Now,
but when you graduated, was there any expectation? And this comes from, I guess, learnings from our parents, etc., that you get a good education and then you're expected to work almost right away, or and there's a certain, like, you follow a certain path. And then you get to a point where, you achieve success or whatever. Was that bestowed upon you when you graduated?
You mean the D word, doctor?
No, well, anything that was deemed success so that your parents could kick you out of the house, right?
Well, I moved out right away. I mean, I came to Toronto to go to school because I'm from the center of Canada, Winnipeg. If any of you have been there, apologies to Winnipeg. It's a great place to come from, whatever. Some people love it. But my parents actually were entrepreneurs too. They had fabric and drapery stores. So I grew up working in the business. You know, when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, you know, all the way up through university, I worked in that business. So I guess the expectation or the safety net was you could always come home and take over the stores.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Albert, a different part of the spectrum. When you, and this obviously is going to be recent for you, but when you graduated from college, did you have any expectations about going into your first job, or what kind of company did you want to work for? Albert, I'm talking to you.
Okay, I'm here. Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay, so when you first graduated, did you have any expectations about the kind of company that you wanted to work for?
You know, like I think where I was 5 years ago and where I am now are definitely different. When I first graduated, I think the intention, even though it was like really hard to get a job because I graduated in 2010 at the end of the recession, was to I think work at like a much bigger company, Fortune 500 for sure, because that's where my parents have worked, and I think that's where they also wanted me to work. Even though I had gone into marketing, which is much different than the career track that my parents had taken, which was in engineering, and I think they kind of layered those engineering expectations on a marketing person, which in some sense didn't really end until about maybe 5 months ago or no, 7 months ago in December, when I think my mother finally accepted and realized that her son worked in marketing and said, okay, all right, I'm not going to try and convince you to go do anything else anymore.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
A mismatch of
you know what?
stories here and there.
I totally get that. I went into school for arts, and then my mom switched me into business because she said I'd never be able to land a job, painting nudes all my life. So I end up segueing into the business world. Oh, okay, Tiffany. What about you? You graduated when?
I graduated in 2006.
Okay.
And I graduated with a PR major and expected to work for a PR firm, and that's exactly what I did. In PR, especially, I think any of the marketing communications, there's a just lie about what your income is going to be. And fortunately, I had enough internships to be able to ask entry-level people what they were making, so I wasn't shocked when I graduated and was making less than $30,000. But a lot of the people that I worked with were absolutely appalled.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean lie?
Well, because the thing is, and it's not intentional, but when you're in, and I also only speak for larger universities because I've never really engaged with a smaller university, but when people are talking about majors and careers, there's a very subtle difference that people don't notice between entry-level pay and average pay. And I can't blame professors. I will blame the college students for not looking at those certain things. But there's expectations that you're coming out, especially in like a communications creative, like PR, and it's, I'm going to live in New York and I'm going to be Samantha from Sex and the City, and that's just hilarious. So when I graduated, I expected to need to have a second job, and I did. I worked 7 days a week for 3 years. That is not what most of my classmates and folks that I worked with expected to do or did. So my experience is a little different because I just kind of knew that was going to be part of it and decided to continue with that degree.
So it was more of a passion play as opposed. So when you graduated, your career path, you knew that there would be kind of fits and bumps when it came to salary, but regardless, you continued to pursue that side.
Well, the thing is, there's so many people that graduate in PR that there's absolutely no reason to pay an entry-level new grad anything more than that much money, because it takes several years to weed out the ones that think they're going to be publicists to those that actually care to figure out the brand. And so once you reach about 5 years, you can grow steadily and kind of feel like you're earning the money that your degree said you were going to earn. But in the beginning, there's no reason for a big PR firm to pay you that much because they can find someone else.
Can I ask you a question? Having worked for my own firm and also for a larger PR firm, did your education prepare you for what they needed?
I would say on the base level, yes, but in the beginning years, it's a lot of grunt work, and I think a lot of people graduate and expect that they're going to be leading campaigns, and it can be a really rough first couple years and learning lessons for people. So as far as the school that I went to, was heavy in writing and heavy in analytics, which was great because a lot of people in PR and marketing, especially PR, are not heavy in analytics, and so that kind of made me shine in my office because even though I was entry level, I could run the numbers, and that was unique.
Why don't you give a plug to it if you liked it?
Yeah, I went to Iowa State. I have my Cyclones Cup. When I graduated, PR was an emphasis within journalism and mass communication, and I think about 3 years ago, it's now an individual degree. So the school is growing, and I give them full props for preparing me and scaring me half to death in certain ways.
Good for you. Okay, Stephen, let's hear from you because you work in the insurance industry, and you had talked about the fact that you you run multiple offices. Tell me about your job a little bit.
Well, I don't run multiple offices. I'm the manager of about 8 or 9 guys that write the estimates for people when they're involved in car accidents. There's 2 guys that work in Pittsburgh, and 1 guy in the Harrisburg area, another guy they're all over the state. So when we're talking about work culture, trying to get people galvanized around a certain idea as team, they're out there as islands pretty much on their own. So it's very difficult to feel like part of the overall culture of the organization because we're out in the field and they really don't understand what we're doing. Sometimes I think they don't want to understand, but I mean, it's just difficult because you have 8 different personalities that you're trying to buy into one idea, but they're all over the place. It's not like I can have meetings every day and people get to know each other a little bit better and things of that nature.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask the question before I actually got to that because I want to get to your work. But when you started out, did you start out in insurance when you came out of college?
I was. My grandfather worked for a regional bank, and he was a branch manager for it's now defunct. It was bought up by Core States, and now it's part of Wells Fargo. It was called Meridian Bank at the time. And I wanted to follow my grandfather into banking, and that's what I did. I had a general management degree with a minor in accounting, and I was probably 1 credit short of a minor in marketing as well, but I decided I had enough of college and graduated, and I tried to get into the management trainee program. It didn't work out for me, but I stuck it out and eventually sort of worked my way up there. But I was downsized, so I landed in the insurance industry. So the 2 big bad insurance, industries that everybody hates is what I went into.
Well, getting downsized into insurance is not so bad if you think, I guess, right?
Well, actually, I felt like when I got laid off, they had like this expense initiative, and I was one of the low men on the totem pole. I know that's not politically correct, so forgive me. But I wound up getting laid off from the job. I was at corporate market management at the time.
Right.
And so I went to a company called CNA, which is it's still around, it's a major commercial insurer, and they downsized. So I wound up landing in the claims department just to keep a job. I had just gotten married, and I was like, I have to do something with my life here. I guess I better do something. So I kind of landed there, and 19 and a half years later, I'm still there. So.
Yeah. Well, that's not so bad. I mean, considering the layoffs, like when you started, you end up getting some kind of sustainability out of it, right?
Right.
So,
I mean,
good.
It's a solid, being in, I work, can I say the name of the company? Okay.
It's totally up to you.
All right. Well, I work for a company that's owned by Allstate. It's called Encompass Insurance.
Okay.
And it's it's basically marketed to upper middle class, affluent people, you know, that have the house, the cars, the ATVs, you know, the second home at the beach, that kind of stuff. So it's marketed to people that have a little bit of money. But Allstate is just another way of sort of getting into that part of the industry.
Okay.
So,
Okay, great. Okay, so, Jillian, you're now down to 1. I think I was seeing double for a second. So tell me about you. When you graduated, how many years ago? Did you have any expectations about the kind of company you wanted to work for?
Well, I graduated in 2005, so I was right up at the precipice before the big financial meltdown. So, being in a rural area, I graduated from WKU, Western Kentucky University. I was in the uniquely perfect position to just suffer every single loss that was available for that particular time in our nation's history. So when I graduated, I just expected to gain a job somewhere, and what I expected in my first job was to do, just a small amount of responsibilities, just a couple of things at a time, and eventually, have enough experience to work my way up in the classic, employment way. What ended up happening was I started out on that slope, and then I moved to a larger market, which was Nashville, and I started a couple of times in that vein and was, downsized a couple of times. And so I just didn't get to realize any of the expectations necessarily. I just always had the goal of getting a job. I didn't really have that employment entry, situation of like getting to be ideal about things.
Right. Well, I think I think, and I'll direct this to Mila, because actually you graduated probably around the same time as I did during the recession, and the kind of things that Stephen experienced. Probably was that something that you experienced when you came out of school?
I don't know. I think I had a bit of an unusual background because I went to high school in California. And the high school, and I'm going back to high school because it really, I've got to say, I think it really set my expectations properly for life in general, which I was really fortunate to have. But one of the interesting things that I was told when I was in high school was that in my generation at the time, we were, I'm at the cusp of Gen X. I guess now I am like a middle Gen X, I guess. I'm 40. But at the time, Gen X was still ahead of us. So there was a lot going on at that time in discussion on what the future would hold for my group that would be graduating. And one of the main things that they had found at that time was that most people at that point in time would change careers 5 times. So I took that to heart, understanding that moving forward. And as I studied different things, so I studied food service and restaurant management because I wanted to be in the service industry, and that was really important to me. So it was the first thing that I studied, and I completed, in Quebec we have a different system here, so I completed a college diploma in that. And then once I did that, I wanted to expand a little further, and so then I went into public relations, and I did that at McGill. So during all this time, I was always working in whatever field I was studying because I understood from the beginning that the state of the world was one that, you may change your career several times, and not only that, but that you shouldn't expect to find a job when you get your degree immediately. So you should always build work experience. So from a very young age, I constantly worked in any capacity that I could in any field that I was interested in, and kind of took every step I took in my studies was to enhance the skills that I was developing. So you know, so the first the food service and restaurant management, I think, was in 1998. But again, we have a different system here where you graduate high school a little bit earlier. So I finished high school here in Montreal, not in California, and then I went into college. And then, you know, you have university after that. So I have a few different I guess, diplomas in areas of study, and I also have my insurance licensing, which I did later after all of those studies. So, so all this to say, I think I went into things really understanding what the environment would be, and I think that was a huge advantage. Yeah, so it's been kind of interesting. The only one thing I can say, though, about a work environment, to tie it kind of back to that, is that the thing that I've learned more than anything is I kind of always went into things thinking, okay, if you work really hard and you understand, you know, the goals of the organization, and you do all of these things, then naturally you're going to succeed. And I think a lot of the politics, and I think this faces, you know, the younger millennials as they join the workforce, or anyone joining a workforce at any point in time. You know, those are the things that become difficult, and, you know, the environment that you're going to work in, if you're not versed in that, which you can't be when you're starting out, it does take a while to learn those ropes. And if you don't have that flexibility, then you kind of are just like, okay, you know, I'm going to try something else, or I'm going to do something else. If you're really set on your career and you studied to be, you know, in one field, and then you get there and you're like, I don't know if this is normal, what's going on. You know, I think that's where a lot of the shock happens, probably for any generation entering the workforce. So there's been a learning curve there that was really kind of neat.
Okay, so let's start off, and I want, anybody can answer this, but for those that are working today, let's say for a corporation, and Martin, you can answer this as well, because you have worked for other businesses as well, but are you proud to work for the company that you do now? And if so, why? Does anybody consider themselves engaged and happy in their current work situation?
I can start if you'd like, since we're going from one direction to another. I would say that I'm definitely engaged. I have a very, very good boss who cares a lot about the people that she works for. I would also say that even though work can be stressful, she's extremely supportive. Do I enjoy working here? I would say it's pretty good because you know, it's a company that's doing a lot of really big things in the cloud and information technology space. I'm doing a lot more writing, I think, these days than, you know, I'm totally used to doing. But you know, I think it's definitely building up my skills as well as domain knowledge for the area that I'm working in. Absolutely.
Okay. So the things that I hear you saying is that support from your boss is very important, right?
Yeah.
A learning environment, and especially in a place that's, I guess, technologically advanced, is important to you, right?
Yep.
Correct? And how long have you been working there for, Albert?
I've been here for 6 months.
Okay. Okay,
yeah.
And that might and so my question to you is that, okay, so the last place that you worked, were you, and this could be a function of tenure as well, how did you find working there after, let's say, the 6 month or the 1 year mark? Like, what was your disposition with the company?
I would say that I would probably hope to stay here between 1.5 to 2 years, but who knows?
Okay.
We will see. Yeah.
But the other company that you work for, did you find yourself over time not as excited? Like, I mean, this is a question about culture and why there's a high turnover, right? Why people leave, and why it's hard to actually be engaged in a work culture. From your perspective, you're newly 6 months, you're excited, that makes sense. The other company you used to work for, how long were you there for, and maybe the reason that you left?
I was at my previous company for 10 months and I left despite really liking that job too because my contract ended and my manager well, rather my manager's manager left. And so my current manager at that time, who I directly reported to, did not was not able to advocate to anyone to extend my contract.
Okay.
And so I really had no choice but to go.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so Jillian, how long have you been at your company, and what do you do now?
Well, next month it'll be 2 solid years.
Oh, yay, awesome.
And this would be, well, so let me back up. I started in a position that chiefly managed social media and community management. And my job recently in the third quarter of 2014, so just, it feels like a few months ago, but now like 8-9 months ago, it kind of expanded to engulf a lot of what my outgoing boss's responsibilities are, along with a title change to digital marketing manager to just handle virtually all of our online advertising, along with some branding and obviously still the community management portion as well.
Right. So are you happy? Are you happy in your current role?
Yeah, surprisingly more happy than I expected to be pretty much at every step.
Why are you surprised?
I don't generally like working for people. I would have liked to put that in different terms, but I'm trying to, I keep, backtracking to, the last, awesome working situation, and it all comes down to, after a certain amount of time, I either get, bored with the material or feel very stagnant in what I'm doing. I tend to take on, interests in at a different rate than employment positions really want to grow with you. But in this position, at this company, I shouldn't say in this position, as my interest grew or my abilities or, skills and things like that grew, the position and its requirements took on a new growth spurt and allowed me to, really have something to strive for instead of to become stagnant and have the same kind of feel pangs of boredom or whatever that usually come along with holding a position for a little bit of time. And I don't know whether that is a Jillian Jackson thing rather than being a millennial thing. I'm not sure, because people have jobs for 15 years and are perfectly happy. So
I think part of it too is so your role expanded, and that means that there was obvious support from your manager's side to give you additional responsibilities that would allow you to continue to grow within your role, right? Or expand your role, right?
Well, with my outgoing boss is outgoing, she opened up a void in the company, and the choice was to hire someone else or to trust me to take over what it was that my boss was leaving the gap of, and the choice was to let me take it on, and then after seeing how that went on, decide whether to bring someone in or not, and we decided that I'm awesome.
Well, I think you're awesome. Okay, does anybody else want to answer that question? Who is happy?
And modest.
Oh, yes, she is.
I can see why Amy likes her so much.
There you go. There you go.
I want to throw something into this because, a lot of millennials get blamed by Gen X and Boomers for not having loyalty, for leaving places. And I actually think all that millennials are doing is responding to the new workplace rules that Gen X and Boomers haven't accepted, and that is there are no jobs for life. anymore. And in fact, Tiffany, you put the average tenure of American employees is 4.6 years. I actually think that's probably high. But I think that in this world, we're all kind of free agents in a way. I had a client that had a strategy called ZOG, zero overhead growth, which means in tough times they wanted to still grow the company. How do you do that with zero overhead when costs go up? Cost of supplies, cost of things. Right. Well, that means you lay off all the people who've been there for the longest time because they have the highest salaries, and get people who you don't pay as much to come in and do the jobs and learn on the job, and then they reach a certain point and then they get let go. And I think that's just a cycle now in the workplace. There are not jobs for life. There is no loyalty, and I think the workplaces created that and are blaming it on boomers, but it's actually the reverse.
You mean millennials? They're the
millennials. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Martin, you hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, the only reason why I stayed with the company as long as I have is because, sort of like what Jillian said, I was able to sort of morph my way into different jobs when I got bored with what I was doing. And so after 19 and a half years of like kind of I'm in a position where I felt kind of forced to take it, or else I wouldn't able to get into management, which is what I wanted to do. So I'm in like a field right now, it's technical auto, which is like auto body repair. Like, I didn't go to school for that. I went to school to be a general management, accounting, and marketing. I mean, what the heck does that have to do with auto repair? But somehow, some way, I'm doing that job. But my loyalty has been derived from, I think that the company I work for is an excellent company. A lot of great benefits. I have over 30 days vacation. With the job I have now, I'm able to pretty much do whatever the hell I want. As far as the flexibility of my schedule. So there's a lot of that goes into why I'm staying. But hey, look, if I was offered a job somewhere else that I was more happy at, of course I would go. I don't have any loyalty, because trust me, they would get rid of me in a heartbeat, and I know it. So anyway.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The one thing that's coming out of this workforce, of this economy, is that as high as the unemployment rate is, so they're laying off people just as fast, and from what Martin was saying, zero overhead growth, the first place you're going to cut is your resources, your employees, the minute revenue starts falling below expectations. And so you're right, Stephen, there is no loyalty towards employees, and in fact that's the reason why it's so hard to maintain good talent. So Tiffany, my question to you, are you happy? Are you happy in your current job?
Yes, and it would be really silly to say no if you weren't, but I fortunately am. I have been with my organization for 3 years and have been fortunate to be able to grow within the organization, because the position that I started with was a position that is mandatory and has been there for years and was never going to grow more than what it was. And I was comfortable with that at the time that I took it, because it allowed me to get back into the industry I wanted to get back into, and allowed me to get out of a work situation that I no longer wanted to be in. But I imagine if the changes that we've gone through hadn't happened, I might have become discontent and started looking for other positions. But a promotion that was really a combination of two jobs that really had nothing to do with each other, other than the fact that I had the skills to do both of them, presented itself about 1.5 years in, and then very recently another position that didn't exist until very recently came up. And so I've been able to grow within this organization so that I don't get bored, I don't get stagnant, and I've been able to grow a team. When I started, it was just me, and now I manage a team. And so that has made everything that I needed to do that much easier, and also allow me to see where my long-term growth could be, whether it's with this organization or not.
Right. And so what I'm hearing from you, Jillian, as well as Albert, but even what Stephen had alluded to this, is that the importance for everybody here is professional career development, right, and growth. And there are people out there that are willing to stay in a job for so long until they hit retirement, because they know they're going to get a pension, they know they're going to get all these perks. But as Martin said, you know, that's almost, I think people are hanging on you know, for life, just so that they can get that. But the reality is that even if you decide to go, or opportunities are made available for you elsewhere, that really just isn't the case anymore. I think the economy is showing that companies just can't sustain the kind of overhead that they did before. So, so that's good. I'm glad to actually hear that about happiness. And so, Mila, I want to hear from you, because this is something that you've developed or kind of nurture within your organization, about how to keep people engaged. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Yeah, it's something that's been important to me. Really, anywhere that I've worked in quite a few different fields and with a lot of different types of people. And I felt, you know, the main reason that I am in any career is to help people. So no matter what my role is, no matter what project I work on, I'm trying to help people. That's kind of what I identify with and what gives me value out of my work. So in management positions, it's really important to me to create an environment where people are happy and that I can help them and I can help them grow, and I can make sure that they've got the resources that they need to feel fulfilled at their job. Now, obviously, we have limitations. You can't do everything. But in kind of speaking towards what everyone kind of said here, in that, you know, to stay with a company, you need to have, I think we've all kind of agreed, you want to have some kind of opportunity for growth. And you also want to get what you need out of that company. So, I mean, salary comes into play and all those things. But if you have those opportunities for growth, then generally people, from my experience, tend to stay. Not everybody, as you were saying, wants growth. I have a couple of employees right now who really don't want to grow at all. They just like what they're doing. They're in customer service. They like that. They don't really, you know, they like to learn things, but they wouldn't call it growth. That's not how they identify with it. But throughout all that, I think what's important in an environment in the workplace is for the person leading a group to listen to what people are telling them and to respond to that. And if you listen to, you know, is growth important to you? What does that mean? You know, so some people might say to me, I don't want any growth. Like, I'm just fine. I'm doing my job. I've been doing this for 10 years. I like it. They're telling me they don't want growth, but, you know, you kind of have to listen to them and see what they're really saying. They like training. You know, they like learning new things. They like being useful to each other. They like being useful to their clients. So with that is another form of growth. But if you look at people who are more career-oriented or who want to move somewhere or learn something or evolve, like let's say what Tiffany was saying, the position she's got right now, which has allowed her now to manage her own team, you know, those kinds of positions can develop if there's a close relationship between the leadership in an organization and an open mind and a communication. So I think it's pretty interesting, and it goes across generations. I really don't see this as being isolated to millennials. You know, there are boomers out there who want to take a job and they want to grow and they want to learn. You know, the same thing with Gen X, or, you know, it doesn't matter. It's just different personality types, I think, and it's a matter of getting in there and understanding and creating an environment where all personality types can kind of get along, get to know each other, and people can grow together to whatever capacity they want.
Now, so let's talk about something that I think is going to be really important. So when we talk about the threat of downsizing, it becomes a lot more competitive. Like I know for, let's say, the telcos here in Canada, at least every few years, there's always a reorganization, and then you know, there's a definite downsizing of the telco workforce every so often, and people come to expect that. So they're literally just sitting, like, you know, waiting ducks then to actually lose their jobs. So from that perspective, it almost becomes almost a waiting game, but also a competitive environment to try to be better than the guy next door. And so when you talk about this idea of developing, you know, this communication, Mila, and I want to put this out to everyone else. There's also a trust factor, you would think, but can trust exist in an environment where it's inherently competitive if you could potentially lose your job? And that's really tough. So what do people think about trust? trust in colleagues, trust in managers, trust in your C-suite. Is that going to be an important consideration for staying within an organization? Who wants to answer that?
It's funny you say that, because that was the thing that I was thinking about the whole day about, you know, my boss and how he acts. You know, I mean, I say, if I said this once, I've said it 100 times. As an individual, he's a great person, but as a manager, I'm not so happy about it. Not that he's horrible, but I think I operate with the idea that I'm going to trust my employees until they show me otherwise. So if I get feedback that they're not doing what they're supposed to do and all that, then I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to them, because we're all grown adults. They should know their job. They've been trained how to do it. They're experts at their field. I don't have time with 8 other people and all the other responsibilities to check up on every little thing they do. My boss is the type of guy that he expects you to not trust them and follow up on everything they do. And it's like, drives me bananas, because I don't operate that. I am not the type of person that can operate effectively in that field just because of my personality. And, you know, that's, you know, it's one of the fundamental differences that I have with him. Although I don't think he's a horrible manager. He's not my favorite, but, you know, that I've ever worked for. But certainly, I think he's got it all wrong. You know, trust your people to do what it is, and they will work harder for you so much than if you say, well, I need to check up on every little thing they do. And believe me, in my job, I can tell somebody when they turn their computer on, when they turn it off. I can check their cell phone records if I want to. I analyze expense reports. It's crazy, and that's why maybe I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing for too much longer, because it drives me nuts. It's just not. It's just not me.
I think trust has to be earned. And so many organizations, I mean, there's that base level of trust. Someone hires you, and you trust that they will pay you, because that's sort of the agreement that you have, and most of the time it does work out. Sometimes it doesn't, then you have to take action. But the other thing is, I think too many bosses expect employees to believe them just because they say something. Mila, you said this about trust and management styles, and that ties into what I'm going to say, that, you know, you have to show it. You can't just say, we've got a really collegial culture here, and then, you know, it's just really repressive. Over to you, Mila.
Yeah. So, but okay, I want to add that. I want to add something to that. So, Martin, maybe the right word isn't trust. Maybe it's respect. There's a respect that you should have for, let's say, an immediate boss, but you're saying that trust needs to be earned over time. If people know that you're capable of doing what you're doing, then they'll give you they'll give you the autonomy that you need to get the job done, and there is that's that respect that you earn, right? Is that what I think you're saying?
No, I think both are, trust and respect are kind of very similar, but I think you have to earn respect also. That doesn't mean that, you know, you have to mistreat people and, you know, speak back to them, but I think trust is really important to be earned, and I think that is a key component of a good culture, one where people are trusting of each other.
So, Tiffany, what did you mean about that? About only if they're diverse? What was your?
I was talking about the stock images.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. So from that perspective, and Albert, I want to ask you, because you have a job list. You have Albert's list, and so I'm sure that within that specific group, you hear all sorts of things from people that are either looking to leave or looking to find work. From your experience running that job list, what are people? What kind of jobs are people looking for to kind of be happier? What makes them happy within a workplace?
I don't really ask questions, I think, as far as what makes people happy or not in whatever role they take on, as much as I think the type of jobs that people are interested in. And so in our group, it tends to be people who are interested in marketing and technology type jobs, just because, in being in Silicon Valley, those are, two very high in demand areas that people are looking for work in. And I think that as far as what gets the most popularity, I think startups definitely are up there, and then Google, because we have a couple of recruiters who recruit for that. Whenever we see Google come across as a job description, people really like what they see there as well, and so that usually gets a lot of attention too.
So people are still awed by the Googles and the big corporate companies. You don't think that the amount of transparency that's out there, let's say through Glassdoor, is making people a lot more aware of those types of environments?
I think what my group has created in terms of discussion along those lines is, and what we've noticed over the last couple of months, is that people are having a lot more transparent conversations as far as job advice and job tips. One thing that I didn't expect to happen over the, I would say, a couple of years that I've been running this group was that people would start asking for the level of advice that they have, because for the most part I was just thinking, hey, maybe people will introduce themselves, share their resumes, and introduce their new jobs and post jobs. But the advice aspect has been particularly interesting because it just shows how much of a community we've become over time. So, there is that too. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask. Anybody can answer this. If there's one thing that you would change about your current company, what would it be? If it would, like, just to have almost like an optimal work environment, like if there's one thing that you could do without, and it would be almost like a great environment to work in, what's the one thing that you'd change? Anybody?
Answer that one.
Okay.
I think this is a really selfish one, but like more adoption of like new technologies, which I guess might be one of those old and tired sticking points, but it's definitely a little, cutting down on like all the manual activities or the processes that can have less steps to it or a more streamlined, process to it. Embracing those a little bit faster to, save in places that are, legitimately able to be saved in.
What's an example of some of the old processes that you think need to go?
Oh man, it's kind of a large company, so I do not know all the things that take place, but there are a lot of different departments that still communicate largely in a paper-based, note-based conversations, and talking and back and forth emails and explaining and notes and things like that can be streamlined in a way with various program adoption or whatever the case, or building a program, or just having a little bit less silos, just things like that. My company that I work for is one that was founded in I want to say the 60s, and I should know this by heart, but been around for a long time, and they've had the exact same, principles of the company for the entire time. So, a lot of that is, a comfort zone kind of thing, and
yeah, that's hard to dismantle. It definitely is. Like, does anybody? So that you brought up the term silos. Does anybody feel like they work in a siloed environment? Stephen, specifically you, because you talked about the different independents that are out there that you manage. There is a certain silo mentality because of that, right? And so getting their perspective on things can be really difficult because of the remote location. correct?
Well, yeah, that's a term that's come up many times throughout my career, and it's one of the, the company I work for is huge, so there's a process for everything, and everybody sort of tries to take ownership of what it is that they're doing, and they don't really understand what everybody else is doing because they're told they have to do steps 1 through 10, and that's what it is that they're supposed to do, and that's what they're not going to deviate from that. I actually, it's been a program that was instituted in the past, but we're kind of trying to get some of the inside people, the adjusters that work on the inside, to get to know what our field guys are up to, so they have an understanding of what they can go through on a day-to-day basis, so they can empathize and understand what it is that they need to do a better job, sort of break that silo down and them have more empathy for what it is that the guys go through in the field, as well as I had my guys come in and spend a whole day with the folks that work on the inside, so they had a better understanding of what they do on a day-to-day basis, and so we're trying to do some things like that. And that's one nice thing about the job I have, is that we are able to try different things, pilot different things, so that if it works and it's for the good of the organization, we can institute them and we roll with it. So but that is definitely something, the silos, you got to break them down, because if people don't understand what other folks are doing, they don't care, and it makes it tough to work.
Okay. Now, can I ask a different question? So did I don't know if I asked this one. Mila, are you proud to work for the company that you work for? If so, why?
I'm definitely very proud to work for the company that I work for. It's got a 90-year history, and it's been run by the same family, so we're in the 3rd generation of owners, which is quite incredible. And I think that, working for a company like that really allows you to harness that family feel and some of those old school values that are really difficult to find. And we're a large organization. We're not small. We have offices in Montreal and Toronto. So I'm very proud to work there. I'm very proud to represent the history of the family. And some of our clients are 3rd generation as well. So there's something just there alone that makes you feel really good about the work that you're doing, that you're allowing this company to continue and grow, from its humble beginnings. So that's definitely something, and I know that in the industry our name is very strong because of how the employees in general do feel proud to work there, and it's something that I check with my team regularly to see how they're feeling about working for our brand, if you will. So I mean, I don't know if that's a really general answer, but yes, definitely very proud, and those are some of the base reasons. But I'm also proud of the people I work with and in my team, where I've had a chance to learn a lot with them together and build a lot of great things. So there's that too, of course.
So from your perspective, because if you guys, so it seems like you're very concerned about the people that work. From your perspective, your churn rate is fairly low on a year-to-year basis. People end up staying more often than not.
People stay as long as I think they should stay, and what I mean by that is we have two of our employees right now have been there for over 40 years. So I've got 2 that have been there over 40 years. I've got a few that have been there 15 to 20, and then a lot of my hires stay there anywhere between 2 and 5 years. And this isn't a concern for me, kind of touching back on what Tiffany had said in the stats, because the position that I'm offering them, the broker position, in personal lines, okay, which is a very specific area, if these people sometimes they may have greater development goals that they want to achieve, and if I can't offer them that, then what I want to be doing with them is training them, mentoring them, and giving them the tools that they need, and giving them as many possibilities within the role that I can possibly give them. So I manage a lot by strengths. I'll shift people's responsibilities. I'll shift our organization. I've done it I've been there 8 years. I've shifted the way that we run our department probably at least 5 times to manage by strengths and by the team that I have. So I give people the best opportunities so they can develop themselves and feel confident, but sometimes people just want to either shift out of that industry or they want to try a different angle to the industry, like go to the insurance company side and that sort of thing. So I think it's normal to lose people, and I don't have anyone that I've lost to poor circumstances. So I'm proud to say that. I can't think of anyone that has, that we've been thrilled with that has left. And I think there's also something to be said for managing your environment. And part of, I wrote a post once called "The 12 Most Humane Reasons to Fire Your Employees." And it sounds crazy, but when someone is not a right fit, when they're not getting the best out of something, when they're feeling frustrated, or when the team is suffering because of an interaction between certain employees, and there's really nothing that you can do to offer more, it's, sometimes there's just not a good fit. I think that in a way people are happier if they take a step. So, I don't get upset by turnover. I think it always happens for a good reason, and very often the people that I've had leave have stayed in touch with me, and asked me for references and whatnot, but really been very grateful to have kind of passed through our doors. So I think that, that has to be an approach that management takes, that, don't get upset if people want to leave. Understand why. If it was a problem, improve it. But if it's not a problem and it's just that where they want to go, let that kind of go on its own, because that keeps the team happy in a way.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, as long as there's churn, but you keep attracting good talent, that's also a good thing, right? And sometimes it's just time for people. But okay, so we're running out of time. I want one last question. I'm going to ask the millennials, because you guys are still in, I guess, the early cusp of your careers. What's your expectation about, let's say, the next 10, 15 years of your life? Where do you expect to see yourself? And I'm not trying to get you guys to look into the future, but understanding where you are today, and also the experiences that you've had, I guess, through the recession. How is your outlook for your career in the next little while? Let's start with Tiffany.
I'm not sure how to answer that question. I'm thinking about how things changed after the recession, because I was laid off from my first real job. And I think what I learned from that most was to not feel bad abandoning a sinking ship. And I don't mean that my company was, but since we were a PR firm, our clients were cutting their third-party budgets, because that's what you should do so that you aren't, losing your staff. And rather than trust my gut that this was going to happen, I wanted to hold on. And if I just dug in, it would be fine and I could keep my head down. And it didn't work out for me. So I learned to just always keep my eyes open. Even if I'm happy, keep my eyes open, because something may make you happier, but it's always easier to find a job when you have one.
Right.
For better or for worse. And so even if you are happy, keep your eyes open either for opportunities or projects you could emulate or something, because you don't know what you can contribute to your current employer or what that means long term. I also learned that even though I'm in a big city, it is a very, very small town, and you should always be careful not to burn bridges, because great relationships have helped me, but I can only imagine what could have happened had I not maintained those relationships the way I did after I left those organizations. So, yeah, LinkedIn works, apparently. So
that's great. Okay, so Jillian, what do you think? Where do you see yourself, and what are, like, good things for you in the future, like economy-wise, opportunities? What do you think?
I don't know. We got to see how this Greece thing pans out.
Don't talk Greece. I mean, you guys have to be concerned about China more than anything else, right?
Well, I think that, if in the next 10 years, I don't know that it'll be a whole lot different from now, just because there was such a dramatic shift in the last just even 5 working years from what to expect from the employment market, from the workforce, the whole world of work, what to expect from that, in the last 5 years for a person who's working. So, I mean, at this point, I would expect to be, somewhat in the same shuffle, kind of echoing what Tiffany said. Just looking to be very satisfied in the work that I'm doing, and taking note of, just staying, keeping my eyes open.
Yeah, so I think
making sure, not to have tunnel vision about what it is that's making me happy, so as to shut out all the rest of things to be cognizant of in as I go about my career.
Okay, so Albert, what do you think? Are you going to be, I guess, on your toes, I guess, based on what Jillian and Tiffany have said? Nobody is complacent these days, even you, right? Albert, sometimes.
Sorry, I didn't know that was questions towards me.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, you are. I just asked you. You actually have the last word, Albert. So I'm asking you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm totally being clueless today. So the last question was something about complacency.
Well, gosh, I got to give you kudos for actually not listening. Okay, so it's about the next.
I'm here. Don't worry.
I know you're here. I know. The next 10, 15 years of your life, your expectations about work culture, and your prospects for the future.
Oh, wow, that's a very heavy question.
Based on what you've experienced.
Well, if the first 5 years have told me anything, it's going to be a continued roller coaster ride. I'm going to learn a lot about myself. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm going to do a lot of succeeding, and I'm going to continue meeting amazing people. And so I think I think as much as I'd like it to be a little quieter and a little less chaotic, if it probably won't be. I'll probably go through a lot of different things, and I think how I succeed and where I succeed will depend entirely on if I can pick myself up and be versatile in what I can do, and just be creative in how my career moves forward. Yeah.
I love that. I think you've kind of summed it up, and I think even as a millennial, like what you've said is really indicative of how we all feel. I think all of us have to not be complacent about what this turmoil, or I wouldn't say turmoil, but this economy brings, and that we just have to keep remaining relevant and keep learning, because it's not. It is going to be a constant roller coaster ride, and the good news is that the companies are going to be as vigilant about maintaining us as good talent as we are about working for great companies. So now it's going to be a two-way street. So with that,
absolutely.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this week's think tank. And I will post this on Sunday, so you guys get to see it. But great insights tonight, and I thank you all for coming. Okay, say goodbye, everybody, before I stop the broadcast. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.